Hello and welcome to Haunted Montreal's Spooky Story Sessions. I'm your host, Holly Rhiannon, and today I'm going to tell you all about St. Joseph's Oratory. With over 200 documented ghost stories, Montreal is easily the most haunted city in Canada, if not all of North America. Haunted Montreal is dedicated to researching these paranormal tales, and our channel brings you videos in both French and English every Saturday. Today's episode examines St. Joseph's Oratory, Canada's largest church and also one of the sites on the list of the top 11 most haunted locations in Montreal. So before we get into today's story, please remember to like, subscribe, and hit the bell button so you get notified every time we have a new tale to share. And hey, if you're already subscribed, thank you so much. Welcome back. We're so happy to have you. Now, without further ado, let's get spooky. St. Joseph's Oratory of Mount Royal is Canada's largest church and also has one of the largest domes in the world. The magnificent building is a Roman Catholic minor basilica and national shrine and is located on the western slope of Mount Royal's Westmount summit. Located at 3800 Queen Mary Road, more than 2 million visitors and pilgrims visit the oratory every year. While the basilica is undoubtedly popular with the living, it is also said to attract visitors from beyond the grave. Indeed, according to French-language Quebec Huffington Post, St. Joseph's Oratory is on the list of the top 11 most haunted sites in Montreal. As stated, the famous cathedral where Brother Andre worked has had several visitors from beyond the tomb, apparently. Some tourists have indeed seen priests in tunics, and when they approached them, they evaporated into thin air. In addition, it is said that Brother Andre himself appears from time to time in the little chapel where his heart is exposed. Photographer Chris Kolbleitner captures the spooky atmosphere nicely in this shot, which is titled The Haunting of St. Joseph's Oratory. Before delving into these alleged hauntings, it's important, as always, to look at the oratory's remarkable story. The basilica is dedicated to St. Joseph and actually enshrines a statue of him, which was authorized a canonical coronation of Pope Pius X on 19th of March, 1910. St. Joseph can be seen as the saint of everyday life, to whom one turns for help with both minor worries and at life-defining moments. Traditionally, one confides to the care of St. Joseph issues related to family, work, health, and material needs. St. Joseph's Oratory of Mount Royal is the largest shrine in the world dedicated to him. The magnificent St. Joseph Oratory also contains a diversity of architectural styles in its cruciform plan, including Beaux-Arts and Italian Renaissance designs. Ironically, an oratory suggests a small place and is defined as a place of prayer, such as a small chapel or a room for private devotions. The first small wooden oratory dates from 1904, but it was the seed for what would become the largest church in Canada. Because the basilica is on the Westmount slope, to reach the crypt, church, and oratory, visitors and pilgrims can climb one of 3 parallel flights of 283 concrete steps. 2 are for climbing on foot, and the other, in the center, is for the more devout. These people must ascend on their knees, uttering a prayer on each and every one of the 283 steps. Once inside, the oratory offers a series of dark corridors and candlelit places of worship, along with dusty relics such as hundreds of abandoned pairs of crutches lining the walls. These serve as evidence of miraculous healings from earlier times provided by a humble monk who would go on to become a saint. One of Montreal's 12 saints, Brother Andre Bessette, was believed to possess healing powers through his devotion to St. Joseph and his application of a special oil ointment to all believers who requested it. Many pilgrims suffering from illness, handicaps, blindness, etc. poured into his basilica, including numerous non-Catholics. In many cases, he was able to miraculously heal them through divine prayer to St. Joseph, whom Brother Andre credited all of his reported miracles to. Born Alfred Bessette in 1845 in Mont Saint-Gregoire, southeast of Montreal, he was so sickly as a baby that his parents baptized him immediately. They feared he wouldn't survive, but miraculously he did. Although he was frail and suffered from a permanent stomach ailment, he was very much alive. After the deaths of both of his parents in 1857, Bessette, then aged 12, was taken in by a family in nearby Saint-Césaire. His 9 brothers and sisters were scattered to live among relatives and friends. Unskilled and illiterate, Basset drifted from job to job, working as a blacksmith, a baker, and then a shoemaker. In 1870, André Basset entered the novitiate of the Congregation of Holy Cross and took on the name of Brother André. Unimpressed with his frail health and lack of skills, his superiors appointed him to be doorkeeper, nurse, and lamp tender at the congregation's Collège Notre-Dame. Located in Côte-de-Neige, a small village at the time, his duties included running errands, cutting hair, and managing the laundry. The humble Montreal monk said of his time at the college, "My superiors showed me the door, and I stayed there for 40 years. Despite the fact that he never advanced beyond the most lowly positions within his religious order, Brother André would go on to become the most popular religious figure in Quebec in the 20th century. Brother André's first miracle occurred in 1877. When his colleague, Brother Aldrich, complained of a leg injury, Brother André took a bit of oil from a lamp that was burning in front of a statue of St. Joseph. He offered it to Brother Aldrich and told him to rub it on his aching leg and to pray to St. Joseph for relief. Miraculously, following the procedure, the leg was completely healed. The word spread of his healing powers, and soon Montrealers of all sorts were lining up to ask Brother André for his assistance. His reputation grew, and before long, he was known as the miracle worker of Mount Royal. Despite facing criticism from numerous adversaries, many of whom called him a charlatan, he had the strong support of the diocese. Officials at the Congregation of Holy Cross were impressed with his inexplicable healing powers and wanted him to build a chapel to welcome the sick. Fearing a developer would buy the property across the street from Collège Notre-Dame, in 1896 the congregation bought land for $10,000 where St. Joseph's Oratory sits today. In 1904, Brother André established St. Joseph's Oratory, originally a small 15 by 18-foot wooden chapel across the street from Collège Notre-Dame. It was built by a colleague named Brother Abundius. Within a few years, the original chapel was overwhelmed by visitors, many of them seeking divine cures for medical conditions. Despite expansions, the space was insufficient for the number of guests, so in 1914 work began on St. Joseph's Crypt Church, which was built into the side of the mountain and inaugurated in 1917 with seating for 1,000. Realizing that they would need even more space, construction of the domed basilica began in 1924. The project was stalled after the stock market crash of 1929 due to a severe worldwide economic depression. Regardless, Brother André continued healing the sick even as he got older and sicker himself. Plagued by a stomach ailment since birth, his condition began to worsen with old age. At 91 years old, Brother André died of acute gastric catarrh in the infirmary of Our Lady of Hope Convent on January 6, 1937. During his funeral, over 1 million people filed past his coffin to pay their respects. He was interred in an alcove inside the crypt behind the votive chapel at St. Joseph's Oratory. His tombstone reads, Pauper servus a humilis, a poor and humble servant. Prior to his death, Brother André had requested that his heart be preserved as a relic to be used to protect his basilica. In the Catholic faith, bones and other body parts of holy figures are often preserved and kept as relics and placed in reliquaries, often beneath church altars, so worshippers can venerate them. Unsure at first of how to prevent the organ from decomposing, church authorities decided to have Brother André's heart preserved in a glass urn filled with a formalin solution. It was then displayed to worshippers and pilgrims on a marble pedestal beneath the gigantic yet unfinished basilica. St. Joseph's Oratory, while still under construction, was inaugurated in 1955 with a seating capacity of 2,200 and a standing room capacity of 10,000. As the construction continued, a religious-themed garden was laid out on the slopes behind the basilica. With the final completion of the oratory in 1967, the number of pilgrims continued to increase. The Congregation of Holy Cross was proud of its legendary accomplishment. However, scandal struck on Thursday, March 16, 1973, at about 5 p.m., when thieves broke into the oratory and swiped Brother André's heart from its pedestal. The clergy broke into a panic when they realized that the sacred relic had gone missing. Some began praying, whereas others called the police. According to investigators, the theft appeared to be very professional. To retrieve the heart, the thieves had picked 3 locks to open a steel door and an iron grill. Without attracting the attention of any clerics or security guards, the thieves then chiseled the urn off of its marble pedestal and smuggled it out of the basilica undetected. Before long, an anonymous francophone caller rang up the Journal de Montréal and threatened to destroy the heart unless he was given $50,000. The caller directed the newspaper to a car parked at the corner of Crémazie and Drolet streets. Inside, a roll of film was located which contained photos of the missing heart. Authorities at the Oratory rejected the demand. With no leads to go on, the police were completely baffled. After a grueling 645 days, Brother André's heart was finally located after police received a tip. Famous lawyer Frank Schuffy directed them to a house in southwest Montreal where officers recovered the heart in a basement. No arrests were made, and the heart was returned to the Oratory. Investigative blogger Christian Gravener of Coolopolis claims to have solved the mystery about the identity of the thieves. According to Gravener, on the day of the theft, 2 criminals named Peter Fryer and Bobby Adlin were sitting outside the Condé Tavern with Bobby Mattix of Montreal's West End gang. 2 of the criminals were about to be given lengthy sentences for robberies, and Adlin thought he could barter to reduce their jail time if they had something valuable to exchange. Later that day, using their skills as professional thieves, they stole Brother André's heart. Needless to say, ultimately their plan did not work because the Oratory refused to pay the ransom. Eventually, the thieves directed the lawyer to the heart's whereabouts. Rumors swirled that the thieves either felt guilty for their deed or were actually confronted by the spirit of an angry Brother André who demanded the return of his heart in order to protect the basilica, as was his original intention. Officials at the Oratory decided to place the heart under tighter security, including metal bars to prevent any robberies. Notably, it is often said that St. Brother André's spirit appears from time to time in the little chapel where his heart is again on display. Some speculate that the good saint returns to guard his heart, providing a sort of holy surveillance and to ward off any thieves who would dare consider stealing his precious organ again. For many years, everything returned to normal at the basilica. On October 19, 2004, bells across Montreal tolled when the Oratory held its centennial. All the bells of all the churches on the island of Montreal were meant to ring at 9 a.m., though not all churches participated. At 9:05 a.m., the Basilica rang its bell in response to the celebration. That year, the Oratory also was designated a National Historic Site of Canada, and Canada Post issued a special St. Joseph's Oratory Quebec stamp. However, scandal hit the Oratory again in 2008 when a class action lawsuit for sexual was formally launched against the Congregation of Holy Cross. A total of 223 victims claimed that they had been molested by over 40 members of the congregation in their youth. These allegations included perversions at Montreal's Collège Notre Dame between 1950 and 2001, where Brother André used to work as doorkeeper. Despite the brewing scandal, the Oratory had another major celebration in 2010. The Vatican announced that Brother André would be canonized after yet another miracle was attributed to him. A 9-year-old boy in a coma was suffering from severe brain injuries after a cycling accident, and he recovered after his family prayed to Brother André. On October 17th, Pope Benedict XVI canonized him as Saint Brother André. Hoping to put the scandal behind them, in 2013, the Congregation of Holy Cross apologized and paid up to $18 million to compensate 206 victims of actions that occurred at 3 of its institutions, including Collège Notre Dame. Father Jean-Pierre Aumont, Canadian Provincial Superior of the Congregation of Holy Cross, said in a statement at the time, "Some members of our congregation have broken their vows and failed in their mission." Notably, this class action suit did not include St. Joseph's Oratory. A second class action lawsuit, which did name the Oratory along with other Holy Cross institutions, was launched when roughly 40 more alleged victims came forward after hearing other men share their horror stories through the 2013 lawsuit. The Oratory was included in the new lawsuit amid allegations that some of the abuse occurred there. One of the complainants, who went on to become a famous organist, recalled being at the Oratory by sisters, priests, and even his music teacher starting at 8 years old. According to the lawyer representing the plaintiffs, there could be up to 500 more victims who were between the 1940s and 1980s. Holy Cross ran dozens of orphanages, schools, and colleges where these actions were known and covered up. The newer lawsuit was first rejected by Quebec Superior Court in 2015, but then allowed to move forward by the Quebec Court of Appeal in 2019. The case, now before the Supreme Court of Canada, is called L'Oratory Saint-Joseph de Montréal versus JJ. If more than 40 of the congregation members were children since the 1940s, it seems almost certain that abuse was rampant and systemic within the congregation of Holy Cross before then, raising questions about how much Saint Brother Andre knew about these perverse activities during his tenure at Collège Notre-Dame and the Oratory. Whether or not this will be investigated, the scandal still threatens to undo the prestige of Brother Saint Andre, including his 2010 canonization and all of his holy and miraculous deeds. Returning to the alleged hauntings at the Oratory, as noted by the Huffington Post, some tourists have reported seeing mysterious priests wearing tunics, and when they approach them, the priests suddenly evaporate into thin air. According to one witness, "When I saw a group of several priests wearing old-style tunics wandering through the Basilica, I thought there was some sort of ritual going on. They were moving as though in some sort of procession or ceremony, and many of them held candles. When I went to get a closer look, they all just evaporated into thin air, like the smoke of incense. I couldn't believe my eyes." Rumors suggest that this group of vanishing priests dates back to earlier times in the Basilica's history, long before it was racked with open scandal. Indeed, one of the victims represented by the lawsuit said he wouldn't be surprised if the ghosts in tunics comprise a gang of priests who never left the Oratory but haunt it as a way of paying for their deranged sins. Whatever the case, staff at the Oratory do not like discussing these shameful issues, preferring less controversial topics such as the $80 million renovation the Oratory is currently undergoing. This will include a new 360-degree Montreal observatory at the top of the Basilica that will be home to the highest window in Montreal, as well as a welcome center and a new illuminated pavilion aimed at attracting pedestrians. Work was expected to be completed in 2020, but if you go by the Oratory today, you will see that it is still very much undergoing construction. Today, as one of the most allegedly haunted locations in Montreal, the Oratory has a lot to offer. With so much history, some of it wonderful and some of it beyond disgusting, it gives the visitor pause to reflect on how both good and evil can simultaneously exist in religious settings. As such, St. Joseph's Oratory, with all its dark, candlelit chambers and creepy relics of the past, is a perfect spot to search for ghosts and spirits, whether they be a group of vanishing priests in tunics or one of Montreal's controversial 12 saints. Are you a Montreal resident or perhaps a tourist who has experienced something strange at the Oratory? If so, we want to know. As always, we want to know your theories about what could be going on. Thank you so much for stopping by. If it's your first video, we do hope you'll stick around for the next one. We post videos in both French and English every Saturday. If you'd like to learn more about the organization founded by the talented Donovan King, it's all listed in the description down below, along with links to purchase tickets to in-person haunted storytelling tours. Remember to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. We'll have a new video out for you next Saturday, but until then, stay spooky.